What's up, guys? Another nice drive to work Saturday morning. Just wanted to talk a little bit about club fitting and when you go in, things to keep in mind, things to look for. So first off, you need to have an idea of what you're wanting to look at to start. Whether that's different companies, different shafts, different types of heads. We're talking blades, player distance irons, game improvement irons, which I don't even want to get started on that. I think game improvement irons are awful. They're good for the people that play, once a month, once every other month, but if you have any desire to get better as a player, you need something that's going to make you strike the ball better. So when we go in, first thing I ask is, let's say it's irons. I want to see what your current 7-iron is. Most fittings are done off the 7-iron, so that just gives me an idea of what we're having as a baseline. So I want to compare that to, let's say, what standard is now. So let's say you bring me let's say Titleist, you bring me like a 716 or 718 AP2 and you're wanting to get something new. So my first thought is we're going to try and look at the current model of that, which is the T100s or the T100S. So I want to sit there and put together standard. I don't really care what shaft it is at this point, just to see what lie angle is, what length is, especially if you don't know what it is. That's the easiest way for me to do it without trying to ask too many questions and get into specs, because sometimes people don't know what specs are. I had this gentleman come in one day for a fitting and he said he had his own bending bar. Instant red flag to me, because anybody who's messing with their equipment really doesn't know what's going on, for the most part. Obviously there are exceptions, but this gentleman was saying that he bent his stuff like 2 or 3 flat. I get in there and put it next to a standard iron, and it was 4 degrees upright. That's really bad. He had a severe case of pulls, and generally what happens when you have clubs that are too upright for you, you're going to pull it. That toe keeps snagging, so you're trying to get those hands down low, trying to get that golf club to where that sole is now level instead of like that, to where it's not digging anymore. So things like that. And then don't have a closed mind when it comes to what brands. Have 2 or 3 you want to try, but be open to everything. I had this kid come in last night with his dad, and he really wanted to hit Callaway. Mizuno irons, had no intention of really trying anything else. So had him try this TCB. He hit it pretty good. Unfortunately, I didn't have a fitting iron. We just had the full-on 7-iron for that because Callaway ran out of fitting heads before we could get one. That iron's extremely popular. So he hit that okay, and then I put him in a Mizuno, 2 different heads, the 223 and the JPX, the Tour, sorry. And he hit those okay, but I was like, from what he's looking for, he wants something he's going to be able to get in the ground but not get too steep with. He wants something with a little bit thinner top line. So I just had a random wild card in there, and I, after about 20 minutes of hitting or so, went inside and grabbed a Ping I-230, and he instantly hit it better than everything else we tried. His turf interaction was just shallow enough, just deep enough basically. Nice perfect little divots. He was swinging it on line every time. His dispersion went from yay here to there. And his dispersion in terms of carry distance went from basically like a 20-yard variance to about an 8-yard variance front to back. It was pretty much night and day different. So he didn't expect that. He really didn't have any thoughts of ever even trying Ping, but it ended up working and ended up being better. So there's that. And then when we talk about what's going to work, generally a shallower sole, more player's iron, thinner sole, there's not as much bounce. It's going to dig more. It's going to let you get a little bit steeper with it. Then when you start getting into game improvement irons or going along that spectrum, there's more bounce. You're not going to be able to dig. They're designed for pickers. I've had an instance where somebody was with let's say the JPX Tour. They were 1 to 3 down basically, and I put them into the JPX Forged, and they were 0 to 2 up just on changing the sole. It was the same shaft. So there's that. I have to play something thinner because I have to get the club into the ground. I don't like my club bouncing. You put me into something with a really thick sole, or even something like a P790, it bounces for me. It's not good. The 2 irons that I really know of in that category that work for me, that are actually decent, are the Paradigm, oddly enough, and what is it? And the Rogue ST Pros. The Rogue ST Pros are honestly one of my favorite irons that came out last year, if not my favorite iron that came out last year. They were solid. They looked like blades, but had that player's distance performance category nailed down. They looked good. Even though they were cast, they didn't feel like they were fully cast. They felt great. Then you look at like a T200, which is only a forged face and forged sole. Those were extremely clicky. They felt more cast than the Rogue ST Pros did. I don't know. It's just, it's so individual too. It's like, what works for me isn't going to work for you. What works for you isn't going to work for your buddy. Whatever it is. But always keep in mind that you need to let your ego stay at the door and just go with what works. Guy I'm fitting this coming week, we've done some testing. He's playing steel fiber stiffs right now. I had him hit a certain iron in a regular, and he hit it the same every time. And he didn't think he needed a regular, but it's just the way he delivered that golf club. I have an example of, I had a PXG driver a couple years ago, and I had a Ventus Black 6X tipped an inch in it, and it was rebar. I swung it, I have a picture of it, that I was like right around 118 club head speed, launched it like, I think it was like 11.8 or something like that, spun it like 1800. So a little low spin, but I put in a 45 gram Ladies Flex shaft in that same head and got identical numbers. Same exact launch, basically same exact spin, same exact club head speed. It was crazy. Why did that work? Don't know. Would I play it? Probably not. I had to wait on it just a little bit at the top, but otherwise, I mean, it was identical in terms of delivery and performance. Dispersion was the same. But, you know, it's just, you gotta go with what works and what you're comfortable with. I fit a kid that he fit perfectly into this Cobra driver, but refused to take it home. I mean, it was exactly the launch we wanted, exact spin we wanted, more ball speed. He carried it 10 to 12 yards further, but he was more comfortable over a ping. So he took home the ping. It is what it is. There is a factor there that you have to go with what you think is going to work, more so than what the numbers are going to say. My triple diamond was perfect on paper. I get to the golf course, I can't hit it. It was great on the range, was not good on the golf course. That's just how it happens. But we're also looking for certain ranges and whatnot in terms of launch spin. It's all based on your ball speed. I really don't care about what your club head speed is. To me, that doesn't matter. It kind of gives you an idea of what flex to go to, but at the same time, no, it doesn't. Because like I just said, I was swinging 118, and hit a ladies flex shaft perfect. It doesn't matter. I really look at it more on how you load and unload the shaft. If you're a little bit harsher in your transition point, then you're going to want something stiffer. If you're quicker, you do want something a little bit heavier, but at the same time you can also go a little bit stiffer. Stiffness also manages spin in a way. So I can put you in a stiff, and let's say you're spinning at 3, I can put you in an X, and willing you hit it okay, it should drop you down to 26, 2800, somewhere in there. So it's a little bit of variance there. Again, we're also just trying to get something in play. I don't really care if you want to hit the ball 350 yards. That's not going to stay on the golf course most of the time. That we're trying to launch at 17, spin at 17, 18. That's not sustainable on the golf course. When I was fitting myself for the 425 when I first got on Pinkstaff, for whatever reason, our fitting head, I couldn't spin over 2,000. Took my quad on the golf course, and 14's dogleg left. It's like 270 at most to carry that bunker on the left. And I nailed my drive, said I carried it 306, launched at 16, I think spun it like 16. Yeah, it was 250 in the bunker into a 2-mile-an-hour breeze, because you have to have a ton of ball speed to sustain low spin. And I think it was like low 160s ball speed or something like that. So wind plays a factor into it for sure. So I'd rather see you spin it 200 to 300 RPMs more, but it's going to stay in play, than 200 to 300 RPMs less, and it's going to carry 12 yards further one time around. End of the day, my job is to make you a better player, not hit the ball 37 yards further because you want to hit it 37 yards further one time around. You're never going to you're not going to full swing driver 12, 13 times around. It's not feasible. But the last bit here is, when you go in, know what you're looking for in the terms of what kind of golf club do you want. Are you trying to get a little bit extra distance? Are you trying to hit more fairways? Are you trying to hit more greens? What are you looking to do? I had somebody, he's in his late 60s, early 70s, that had these Callaway Steelhead XRs and basically didn't launch them, didn't spin them, so they weren't flying very far and they weren't holding any greens. We had a conversation about a week prior to our fitting that in order for him to hold greens and be a little bit better of a player, he needed more spin, which for the most part meant that he was likely to lose a little bit of distance to compensate so he could hit more greens, hold more greens. His scores would go down, he would just be clubbing up a little bit more. He was a little bit hesitant, but thought about it for over a week and realized that's what he wanted to end up doing. We ended up going in our fitting, put him actually in a Paradigm iron. Launch went up 2 to 3 degrees on average. Spin went up 1,000 RPMs. Ball speed went up significantly and ended up picking up 17 to 20 yards of carry. That's still going to hold greens, didn't compromise his distance whatsoever. That's only going to make him a better player, especially because he's struggling with distance to begin with. So we have no qualms going with that iron. And that ended up working out really, really well for him. So knowing what you're looking for and letting your fitter know what you're looking for can only help you figure out what you're trying to do faster. I have some friends that over at Mira Vista that are looking for some drivers. Some of them want to hit more of a draw, some of them are looking to get a little bit more distance out of it in total distance. So that means we need to look at something that's going to spin a little bit less, probably carry a little bit less, but it's going to roll out further. So there's just a bunch of different variables and different thoughts to go with when you're going into your fitting. At the end of the day, you need to figure out what's going to get best for your game, where you play, and how you play. So anyways, if you have any questions, just leave comments down below. I'll take a look and get back to you. Thanks, guys.